Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday Night Ignite. If you're new to this call, at 7 p.m. Every Monday, we have a health call, and at 8 p.m. we have a business call. So you're welcome to stay on. These calls are all recorded, and so that you can always hear them again later on. Generally speaking, they're always going to be on the Grow Facebook page, which is run by Jill On Call, or Jill On Call is part of the name of the group. And of course, if you found this from one of your personal groups, then you can find that information there as well. We reached back the Vimeo links to all the different leaders. Tonight, we have a special guest. He's been here many times, Dr. Doug Corrigan. He's going to be teaching about metabolism and weight management and the real science of natural health, which obviously is so exciting, and using essential oils for weight loss. And Dr. Doug has a PhD in biochemistry, a molecular biology. He has a master's and a bachelor's in physics. I love this, like most of us who seem to get into Young Living. He was a skeptic at first when his wife first got into the oils, and then he realized the benefit from the things that happen in his household, and now is on our side, which is awesome, of helping educate people, especially with all of his knowledge and expertise. That now we can have the opportunity to glean from. So Doug, please go ahead, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Stacy and the night group. Thank you for having me tonight. Hopefully you can hear me okay and everything's good with the connection. I'm going to be sharing my screen here in a moment. I'll just introduce myself real quick for some of you who don't know who I am or how I got to where I am now with essential oils in my family. So my name is Doug Corrigan. Was in the pharmaceutical research and development sector, doing a lot of research. I have a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology. Had started my own biotechnology company. We were developing research tools to help the pharmaceutical industry develop drugs faster, quicker, more accurately, easier for drug-resistant viruses and other types of pathogens. And my wife had gotten involved with essential oils. And mainly because she was burning candles in the house and using artificial scents with these artificial candles. She's basically a candle fiend and loves candles, but they gave me bad headaches. All the artificial scents did. So I got her first starter kit a long time ago, like 8 years ago, just to deal with these artificial scents and diffuse that around the house instead of candles. And that worked well. We got rid of the candles and we had all these nice blends and diffusing going on in the house now. I wasn't worried that the house was going to be burned down when we left the house and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't getting headaches anymore. Then my wife started to use them for other things for our children who had some medical issues. And I wasn't a big believer in them at the beginning. I was a skeptic because I was in the Western school of thought in terms of monomolecular therapy and how all that works. And I saw some things that happened with our children and then with me particularly as well, that Western medicine could not fix or deal with. And that's what made the light bulb go off in my brain. And I said, I need to figure out how these work and what's going on. So I went on a mission to discover how they work, did a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of going into the scientific papers on all of it. And then I wrote a book called How Do Essential Oils Work? And then started teaching classes on how they work to help other people understand how they work, because there is science behind them. I get accused of all the time being a snake oil salesman or whatever, but I just kind of let it brush off my shoulder because I used to think the same thing. And you just have to show people the science, and once you show them the science, and they're like, oh, I see how it works. There's real science behind this. So that's where our journey started about 8 years ago, and I've been learning ever since and growing and doing new things. But tonight, what I'm going to discuss is metabolism, weight loss. Can you actually use oils to help lose weight? What are some of the causes of weight gain, or some of the things that make it difficult to lose weight? And then some of the things you can do to help you lose weight or on your weight loss program. Everyone struggles with this, I'm sure, that deals with weight problems. I do, my wife does, everybody, every American deals with weight problems to one issue or another. And a lot of things I'm going to share with you, not only if you don't have a weight problem, they will help you health-wise as well, help you be healthier. So I think this applies to everyone. So I'm going to share my screen here. This is an actual class I developed called Essential Oils and Weight Management. This is actually only one of the modules. There's four modules in this class series. And I'm just going to share one of the modules with you, okay, tonight. And it should last about 45 minutes. And then you can take questions. Can you all see my screen? Just give me a thumbs up. You don't have to. All right, great. So I'm going to make this larger here now, in presentation mode. So that should be even bigger for you guys. So I want to give you some tips tonight, basically, and some things I've learned along the way and some scientific research you've done. All of my classes that I've ever developed are actually on a memory stick that you can get. It's a USB memory stick. You just plug it into your computer, your laptop, and all of my classes there. They have all of my videos and all of my slides. I mail the USB to you. You also get emailed a link where you can download it off the internet if you want to. But you get a USB drive and a link, and you get all of my classes. I have dozens of classes. I have all of my recipes are on there, all of my recipe sets, my database for frequently asked questions. Now, the class I'm teaching from tonight is Essential Oils and Weight Management. That's also on the stick. It has 4 modules. I'm only teaching one tonight. And then some of the recipes I'm going to show you at the end, or talk about at the end, those are all included on the memory stick as well. They call the Metabolism Booster 7-day rotation set. That's on there as well. You just go to starfishsense.com and you'll see this item in the store. It looks like all of Dr. Doug's classes and recipes. Just click on that and you can order that right there. If you order any 2 things from the store, there's 30% off. So if you add something to the memory stick, then you'll get 30% off it as well. Okay, so that's going on tonight. So some facts to start off with. A lot of Americans are overweight. About 70% have a BMI of greater than 25. The BMI is the body mass index, which basically calculates what the percentage of your body is fat versus not fat. And anything over 25 is considered to be overweight. 30 to 39 is considered to be obese, and then 40 or above is severely obese. Now, if you want to calculate your BMI, you can go to the National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute. Just click that into Google and click on there. And there's a BMI calculator. You put in your weight and some other details about yourself, and it'll tell you what your BMI is. Now, this is a general rule of thumb. There's different body types. So, you know, it's not exact science, but it gives you a general range of where you're at, okay? Now, Western diets, like what we have in America, are energy-rich, nutrient-poor. Okay, so there's a lot of calories. You have a lot of starch. You have a lot of fats. You have carbohydrates that are all processed and refined, and all the minerals and fibers are removed or extracted from the food, and you're left behind with the basic energetic elements of the food, which are highly energetic, stripped away from all the other nutrients, like, for example, trace minerals and fibers and micronutrients and vitamins, and all those things are stripped out of the natural food in a Western diet. So you look on a can of something or processed food or a bag of something, you go to a restaurant, that's the case all of the time, right? And so unless you make a concerted effort to eat natural and search for things and make an effort to do that, you're going to be eating processed foods for the most part in a Western diet. So it's a lot of energy, a lot of calories, but a lot of nutrients. So what happens is you want to eat more of it because your body's not getting enough nutrients. If you're not getting enough copper, you're not getting enough selenium because it's a trace mineral, your body's not getting enough of it. You start to crave more of it. So you eat more of the food that has very, very low amounts or none in it, and you just keep eating it and eating it and never get the nutrients you need. So that's one of the problems with a Westernized diet. Now, they've shown that if you take a country that's not Westernized, has a pretty natural diet, indigenous diet, and then you convert them over into a Western diet, you start bringing McDonald's and processed foods in, you'll find that they will become obese in 1 generation. So 1 generation goes by, you'll convert that population of people over to an obese situation. So the Western diet is the major problem. Okay. So we have to put in an effort here in America to go against the stream. It's not easy. You got to make decisions. You got to make purchasing decisions. You've got to do a lot of work to try to work against this, because the easy route, or the path of least resistance, is just to eat fast food and all of those types of things, easy food, convenient foods, things that can microwave quickly for your family. And it gets really easy to get into that lifestyle, right? We all struggle with this. The problem is that obesity is connected in with a host of other types of diseases. It's a connected web, okay? And all of these things are connected, but obesity plays a role in increasing the risk of lots of different types of diseases and health problems: diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, stroke, okay, morbidity, cardiovascular disease. All of these things are connected to obesity as well as other factors in our lifestyle. So, but obesity plays a very large role. Fat tissue, if you have too much fat tissue in your body, it will do a lot of damage to your body through a number of different pathways that have caused chronic illnesses. So it's like a silent killer because it's happening slowly over time, over decades. It's not something that comes and bites you in the butt the first day you're overweight, right? It's going to take 10, 20, 30 years, and you're going to have an accumulation of health problems that get progressively worse and more of them as you age. And so it's something that is basically like a simmering, burning fire in your body that you don't necessarily know is harming you, but it is. It's creating all kinds of health havoc inside your body. So the way I like to look at it is like this input-output diagram I came up with. So you have all these factors that you input into your body: obesity, lack of exercise, your diet, your personal care products, your chemicals you put in your body, stress, viruses or infections. These all cause inflammation. Inflammation is a reaction of your immune system. Most people don't know this, but inflammation is actually your immune system going to work. And there's a defined purpose for inflammation. I have a whole class on inflammation, autoimmune diseases and all that. It's also on the memory stick if you want to get that. But the inflammation part of this is being driven by obesity, among other factors. And what that is that's when your immune system, the immune cells, your white blood cells, are basically attacking the tissues of your body because it thinks there's a problem it's trying to get rid of. And so your immune system's active when it shouldn't be active. Your immune system's really there for acute problems. They have a defined beginning and an end. So a range of time, and it's supposed to ramp up and then ramp down and be over in that defined period of time. That's acute inflammation, and you want that. That's when you get an infection. That's when you get a cut. Okay, you want your immune system to ramp up for that short period or window of time to deal with that situation. But what if that inflammation, that's normally a good process for your body to heal, is on all of the time? And that's what happens if you're obese. If you have a BMI above 25, you have a low level of inflammation, and the higher your BMI is, the higher your inflammation is. Now you can measure your inflammation by measuring a thing called C-reactive protein, CRP. You can go to your doctor or to clinic and say, hey, I'd like to have my CRP level measured, C-reactive protein. That'll show you what your inflammation and state of your body is. That's just one measure. There's other ways to measure as well. But what happens with inflammation? You have your immune system attacking the tissues of your body. Your immune cells actually release what they call reactive oxygen species and reactive nitrogen species, these ROS and RNS. And those basically bathe the tissues of your body, and they wreak all kinds of problems. So they basically destroy the DNA, they oxidize the DNA, which eventually leads to cancer. But this takes time. It takes decades for this to happen. It doesn't happen overnight. But when you have this oxidative stress from the inflammation, the reactive oxygen species, this causes the DNA to mutate very quickly, quicker than normal, and you accumulate mutations in your DNA. And as that occurs, then you have cells that become resistant to understanding when they're supposed to stop dividing. So they just proliferate and don't know when to stop dividing because the DNA or the instructions, their hard drive of instructions, have been corrupted, basically based on the mutations that have been caused by the reactive oxygen species. So this is why obesity leads to cancer. Okay, it's through this pathway. Obesity leads to inflammation. Inflammation leads to reactive oxygen species. Reactive oxygen species damage your DNA. After you accumulate enough mutations in your DNA, the cells become cancerous. And then all other types of health diseases inflammatory bowel disease, diabetes, heart disease, et cetera, are all a byproduct of inflammation or chronic inflammation in our body. So if we lower the amount of fat tissue in our body, we lower the inflammatory state in our body, and we help with all these other health conditions that happen slowly over time. So I explained this already. How does chronic inflammation lead to cancer? This is the pathway. Chronic inflammation leads to DNA damage, which leads to cancer. Now, also, adipose tissue produces a number of different factors. Adipose tissue, fat tissue, produces excess estrogen. Okay, and if you become estrogen dominant, then this will actually proliferate certain hormone responsive cancers like breast cancer that respond to estrogen, or endometrial ovarian cancers can also respond to excess estrogen. So if you become estrogen dominant, there's lots of ways that you can become estrogen dominant, but adipose tissue will actually become like an endocrine gland, and it will secrete estrogen. So it's actually adding to the estrogen in your body. And if you have too high of an estrogen compared to progesterone, then you have endocrine disbalance in your body that causes all types of problems, including weight gain. So it's like a negative cycle. As you gain more adipose tissue, you increase estrogen, which makes it easier to gain weight, which makes it harder to lose weight. And so it becomes a negative cycle as your adipose tissue produces estrogen. Your adipose tissue also produces more insulin and insulin-like growth factor if you have adipose tissue in your body, which promotes colon, kidney, prostate, and endometrial cancers. Okay, so those two factors there will actually proliferate those types of cancers. And then adipose tissue produces hormones called adipokines, which regulate cell growth. So for example, leptin, okay, is a hormone that your adipose tissue produces more of, and that promotes cell proliferation. It basically is a signal to tell cells to start growing or dividing and growing. So that's what cancer is, the cells that have just keep dividing and growing. It also produces, adipose tissue will make you produce less adiponectin, which is another adipokine, but adiponectin has the opposite effect. Adiponectin actually tells cells to stop growing. So you can produce less of that if you have adipose tissue. So you have more of the leptin, which tells your cells to grow, less of the adiponectin, which tells your cells to stop growing. So you can see through all these different factors that adipose tissue is actually an environment that promotes the growth of cancers in your body, in addition to the reactive oxygen species and the chronic inflammation causing the DNA damage, which is causing cells to become cancerous to begin with. And then once they become cancerous, then they respond to these hormones and tells them to grow and divide and keep on growing. So this is why all different cancers, you can go look at any cancer and you'll see that the risk of developing that cancer is much, much higher, 2, 3, 4, 5 times higher, depending on the cancer, if you have adipose tissue in your body, too much. So what are some of the causes of obesity? Obviously overeating, right? So consuming more calories than you actually need. And again, this is very easy in the Western diet because it's energy rich, nutrient poor, but also consuming the wrong type of calories, right? So calories are not bad, but if you necessarily, but if you're consuming the wrong kind of calories, this can lead to obesity. Another cause of obesity is basically your metabolism is altered, meaning your metabolism may not be high enough to burn enough energy to keep up with the number of calories you're burning. You may have a low metabolism. Now, people throw around the word metabolism in many different ways. Metabolism basically is the net sum of all chemical reactions in your body. Every single chemical reaction taking place in all your cells, that's metabolism. Some of those chemical reactions build molecules. Some of those chemical reactions break down molecules and convert them into energies. Some of those chemical reactions don't build or break down molecules, they do something else. But when I say metabolism here, I'm talking about the type of metabolism that's breaking down energetic molecules like fat and carbohydrates, converting them to energy, to produce energy for your body. So that's how I'm using the word metabolism. So if you have unbalanced hormones, endocrine dysregulation, you can have hormonal imbalances, which lowers your metabolism, makes it harder for you to actually take fat and convert it into energy. Low muscle mass is also can be a cause of gaining weight or hard to lose weight, because muscle actually burns energy when you're just sitting there. So more muscle mass will help you raise your metabolic rate and burn energy, and when you're just hanging out, right? So it raises your metabolic rate. Sedentary lifestyle. Now, the things that are red on this list are things that we can all control. We can control eating, nutrition, hormonal imbalances to some extent, not always, but sometimes we can. The muscle mass situation by exercising. A sedentary lifestyle, that's something we can control. Genetics we can't control. Okay, so genetics can make you have a lower metabolic rate than someone else, and you have to do more things to try to raise your metabolism, and you're fighting an uphill battle because your genetics say, hey, have a slow metabolism. You can't change your DNA. So in that case, you have to do things to overcome those things. So, but you can't, there's not something you can control. Aging will lower your metabolism. That's not something you control, but you can do things to counteract it, right? Your microbiome, which is a big factor in gaining and losing weight, more so than anyone's ever dared to imagine or dream of. There's a lot of research coming out in the last 5 years, good scientific research that I go over in my class. It's called the Healthy Microbiome. It's also on the memory stick. And in that class, I talk about the research that shows that the microbiome is integrally connected to many different health problems, including obesity. They've done studies on the microbiome, and they show that people that have a westernized diet and who are obese have a completely different profile of species of bacteria living in their gut. You've heard of good bacteria, bad bacteria, but it's more complex than that. There's 1,000 different species of bacteria living in our GI tract. And the ratio of all those different species is what we're calling good or bad. All right. So the people that have a heavy, weight and or have obesity, their microbiome is completely different than someone who's lean. In fact, they've done experiments in animals where they've shown that they can take a animal that's lean, okay, and they can take the microbiome out of that animal, sterilize the microbiome out of the obese animal, transplant the microbiome into the obese animal from the lean animal, and then feed that animal the same diet was eating that got it obese, and that animal will now start to lose weight because their microbiome is shifted. And they can do the vice versa experiment, meaning they can take a lean animal, take the microbiome from an obese animal, transfer it to a lean animal, and the lean animal will still eat the lean diet, but now become fat. Okay, so the microbiome plays a huge role in metabolism. Now, what they've found is that people with an obese microbiome, those species of bacteria are actually extracting more calories out of the food that you eat. So if you read the side label and it says 2,000 calories for this, you might be extracting 3,000 calories out of it, okay, compared to someone who's getting 1,500 calories. So the microbiome is doing a lot in terms of how much energy you're extracting from your food. And it can make it very difficult to lose weight if your microbiome is skewed. So what I recommend people do when they're trying to lose weight is first work on their microbiome. Get that situated first, because you could be fighting an uphill battle going upstream. Can't lose weight. Well, let's get the microbiome fixed first. So what does that mean? So I go over that in my class, the Healthy Microbiome, and show you all the steps that I think you should take to reset your microbiome so that you're starting from a base of a pyramid where now it's going to be easier to lose the weight. Okay, so that's the first thing I think people should work on. Lack of sleep is a big one that can disrupt hormones and really affect your hunger patterns. You want to eat more when you sleep less. Makes you hungrier throughout the day if you don't sleep good at night. And then inadequate water consumption. Okay, that's a big one. Now, metabolism. Let's talk about metabolism. So I show here is 2 arrows, and this is what these arrows are, is the amount of energy that you burn, consumed energy. This is the amount of energy that you're actually consuming from the food that you eat. So there's an energetic balance here. So you have a certain amount of energy you're consuming, And then you have a certain amount of energy you're expending in your body. Your body needs to survive, and the cells need to work, and your heart needs to beat, and the nerves need to synapse, and all of that. So all that energy summed up in your body is your complete energetic profile. That's the energy demand of your body, which I represent by this green arrow, which is your metabolic rate. This is your base metabolic rate. Now, if you're consuming more energy than what your body actually needs, that excess energy, what your body does is there's two different types of metabolism. There's catabolism and there's anabolic and catabolic, right? So catabolic is breaking down molecules, anabolic is building molecules in this type of metabolism, all right? So if you have more energy than you actually need coming in, what happens is your body ramps up anabolic metabolic processes, it starts building molecules. What molecules does it build? Fat. Fat molecules are big molecules, large molecules. You can build them from sugar. So there's lots of things you can build them from protein, amino acids. You can build fat from, you don't have to eat fat to make fat. Your body can take carbohydrates, take proteins, all the energy from that, and there's metabolic chemical pathways in your cells that will convert those molecules, eventually end up as a fat molecule. Okay, and it stores it as a fat molecule in your body. So that's a very high energy dense molecule, 10 calories per gram, whereas carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram, 2.5 times more energy dense than a carbohydrate. So there's a lot of energy in fat. So your body stores fat for a reason, is to store energy for when you actually need it, right? That's why it stores in the form of fat. It's a highly energetic, dense molecule, meaning you can get a lot of energy in a small volume. That's why your body uses it. Now, if your metabolic rate is higher than the amount of consumed energy, then that difference is going to ramp up catabolic metabolic process, meaning breaking down molecules. You're going to break down the bigger fat molecules into smaller and release the energy from the stored fat and release that energy. So that's the state you want to be in if you want to lose weight, is this right here. How do you do that? Well, you can consume less energy, you can consume less food, or you can increase your metabolic rate. That's two different ways you can go about solving this problem, right? Or you can do a combination of both, which is what most people probably should do, depending on how they were eating before. But if you weren't overeating, you're just eating a normal, the number of calories your body needs, then maybe you need to work on your metabolic rate and not really going on a diet of some sort. So how do you increase the metabolic rate? Well, what goes into your metabolic rate? Remember I said metabolism is really this net sum of all chemical reactions. What causes the chemical reactions in your cells? So enzymes, protein enzymes are basically chemical reaction factories. So all the chemical reactions in your cells take place because there's an enzyme specifically designed to carry out that very specific chemical reaction. We have thousands of different enzymes in our cells that all carry out a different chemical reaction. And so where do those enzymes come from? Well, they're proteins, but the instructions to build those enzymes are in our genes, the DNA. So the DNA in our genes expresses the instructions in a form of messenger RNA, and those instructions then get translated into a protein, and that protein is now an enzyme. That enzyme carries out the chemical reaction. It's the chemical factory that carries out. So you want to break down fat, there's a series of enzymes that do that. You want to build fat, there's a series of enzymes that do that. You want to break down carbohydrates, there's a series of enzymes that do that. All encoded in our genes. Now, so the level of those enzymes, if you have more of those enzymes, then you'll be of the catabolic type, then you'll have a higher metabolic rate that's breaking down molecules, right? So what do enzymes actually need to function and work? Well, it turns out that almost all enzymes need a cofactor to work. They need another molecule to come along and bind to the enzyme to make it more active. And in some cases, it can make the enzyme 1,000-fold, 1,000,000-fold times more active. What are these different molecules? Vitamins are cofactors, a lot of the vitamins, as well as minerals. All right, so you have enzymes that need magnesium, you have ones that need calcium, you have ones that need potassium, you have ones that need selenium. You have ones that need manganese. You have ones that need molybdenum. Okay, you have ones that need iron. So there's a whole slew of different trace minerals that are needed to activate different enzymes. If you're deficient in these trace minerals, these enzymes are sluggish. They don't work as active as they should. And so you have a slow metabolism because the enzymes don't have the cofactor they need to function properly to cause the chemical reaction to take place. So you need enzyme cofactors. So it means you need vitamins and you need minerals. People think, vitamins and minerals, if I don't have enough of this vitamin, then I'm going to have this symptom. But it really goes further than that. The vitamins are all necessary to activate the enzymes in your cells in general, and as well as all of the trace minerals. So you need that. Now, so you want those enzyme cofactors to boost your metabolism. Now you also want to work on your mitochondrial function, because mitochondria is the little energy houses inside your cells. They actually have their own membrane. They have their own DNA, actually. There's mitochondrial DNA you inherit from your mother. But mitochondria are the energy factors inside your cell that actually, a lot of these metabolic, energetic breaking down of molecules and turning them into energy take place in the mitochondria. Not all reactions do. Some of them do. Most of them do. And so having good mitochondrial function is important as well. And then, of course, your activity level. How active or sedentary are you is going to make this arrow go up or down. Are you walking? Are you doing any kind of exercises? How active are you throughout the day? Okay, other things that can make your metabolic rate go up, I don't show on here. Having a higher level of muscle mass, right? More muscle mass in your body will raise this green arrow up. Also, there's two different types of fat. There's white adipose tissue and there's brown fat. Two different types. One type of fat is metabolically active, the other one is not. So white fat is not metabolically active. It doesn't burn any energy. It doesn't use any, well, maybe very little, let's say. Basically, it's just storage of fatty acids and these little lipid droplets inside the fat cells, and the fat is just kind of sitting in there in those fat cells. And it doesn't do much of anything else. So cells are not metabolically active other than just storing the fat and then releasing the fat when it's told to release it. So that's white. It's not really doing anything for you in terms of upping your metabolism. Now, brown fat, you can actually convert white fat into brown fat. Brown fat is metabolically active. And brown fat, what it does is it takes fatty acids, fats, and metabolically processes them through catabolism, breaks them down, and makes energy from that. And that raises your core body temperature. So people that live like Eskimos, like they live in a cold environment all the time, they have a lot more brown fat because that's how one of the ways they maintain body temperature is through brown fat. Brown fat is burning energy. It's like a furnace and it's just warming your body up. So in the winter months, you'll have more brown fat convert over when your body is cold. A lot of people are doing these crazy therapies where they put cold packs all over their body. I don't believe in any of that. I think that's too extreme. There's other things you can do to try to convert white fat over to brown fat. Now, the good thing about brown fat is it's doing work for you when you're just sitting there and it's burning energy and it's rating your metabolic rate up, burning calories throughout the day. So if you can do things to switch, and I'm going to show you some things you can do, that some scientific studies have shown where you can switch brown fat over to white fat. So what are some things you can do to help with all of this? These are just tips, okay? Minerals. Like I said earlier, the minerals are needed for all of the enzymes to function properly. If you don't have them, those enzymes can be really deficient in terms of their activity level. You're really bringing your metabolic rate down if you don't have all the necessary minerals. And there's lots of different minerals. Some of them you might not have heard of before, but you basically need all of them. And so you go to Young Living, they do have Master Formula, and Master Formula has all of the trace minerals in there, plus all your vitamins are in there as well, plus a lot of other phytonutrients and other things. The master formula is a great product. It has so many things in it that your body needs for this metabolic process to take place. You want your enzymes to work at maximum catalytic capacity, I say here. If you want them to be as active as possible, you can really ramp up your metabolism just by making sure that you're taking these things regularly. Then other things you can do, like Young Living has a whole product line of meal replacement shakes, Balance Complete. There's several different ones of those. The Pure Protein Complete Shake. This can help normalize blood sugar levels. One of the things I'm going to talk about is blood sugar spikes here in a second, and how all that plays into this. The einkorn products are great. I love the way they taste. These are not processed carbohydrates. These are carbohydrates that still have from the einkorn wheat, basically all the fibers, all the micronutrients, all the trace elements, the minerals in the fibers is all still in the wheat. They don't get rid of it. They don't process it. And so this lowers the glycemic index of the food. What is that? The glycemic index is the rate at which your body takes the carbohydrate and then releases breaks down those carbohydrates and forms sugar molecules. And those sugar molecules then enter your bloodstream, which then causes your insulin to spike in your blood. So if you can slow down the absorption and then the breakdown of carbohydrates so that the sugar level in your blood doesn't rise as fast, it rises slower over time, like a time release type of mechanism, then you don't have the insulin spike. And if you don't have the insulin spike, less of those calories go into fat, right? So you lower your insulin spike, you lower the amount of calories that get diverted into fat. When insulin spikes, insulin is an anabolic hormone. What does that mean? Insulin tells your cells to build molecules. It tells your cells to build fat, store fat. Take that sugar in the bloodstream and make fat out of it and store it away. Insulin is anabolic. So if you have an insulin spike because your sugar spikes quickly, then you're basically taking all those calories and you're going right to fat. Any excess calories it doesn't need, it goes right to fat. Now, if you slow down by eating foods that have a lower glycemic index, einkorn wheat is one of those, then you will lower insulin spikes throughout the day, and the lower number of the calories will ultimately end up in fat tissue. So you want to eat products that have low glycemic index. And there's a whole, and I think the einkorn products are great because they taste great. You eat less of them, they have the nutrients in there, so you're not eating as much. Remember, if you just eat like normal spaghetti, white spaghetti, you're like, you just eat it, and you're never you're still hungry. Or white rice, you're still hungry. Because it doesn't have you're not getting the nutrients your body. Your body's saying, hey, I still need these nutrients, so therefore I want to tell your body you're still hungry, so you still eat something. So this is why you feel hungry after eating these types of processed food. If you eat einkorn wheat, you'll just eat a little bit of it, and you're like, wow, I feel full now. That's how I feel. And I think it tastes better as well. So you might say, well, it's more expensive to buy it, but I found out that we actually use less of it. So it actually ends up balancing because we're not using as much of it. The microbiome, like I said earlier, I think it's one of the first things that people should work on when they're starting some type of weight loss program in general. I think it's good to work on it even if you're not going through a weight loss thing, because the microbiome connects into your brain, to the gut-brain axis, to your hormones and everything else. The amount of research on this is incredible right now. But just in particular for weight gain, weight loss, resetting your microbiome to shift the balance to the better bacteria that are more of the lean type. Young Living has a number of different products. In my microbiome class, I show you a protocol. I go over all the science and show you a way to reset your microbiome there. Sleek capsules, oil, shakes, and bars, and all that. Young Living has a whole sleek line you can get into with some of the oils I'm going to talk about that have good metabolic properties. And then the shakes and the bars are sleek products. Those are also good products to use if you're going through weight loss. So you can use a combination of these things. I think when most people make mistakes when they do a diet or do something, they use one thing, and then they get so sick of that one thing, like they don't ever want to see it again. Like I'm just going to eat this one thing, or I'm just going to do this one thing, and then they don't stick with it, right? So you should make a whole list of these things and just randomly pick them and just blend them throughout your lifestyle, make it a lifestyle change, and it doesn't feel like you're on this crazy diet program where you're trying to limit yourself to this one thing, right? I think psychologically that's what happens. So let's talk about some oils. How much time do I left? Okay, it's 7:40. I still got some time. Good. So some oils that can help with weight management. These are actually in my weight management class. I go through the scientific studies. I'm just not throwing these up there because I saw them on a website somewhere. This is actual scientific research that you can go look at in PubMed and download the research article and look at the science that they did. Most of the stuff is in animals, okay? But a lot of the research they do in animals applies to humans. And then you can draw inferences from that. And then people use these things and they go, yeah, that worked for me. So then you can draw those inferences and say, okay, what's working in animals is also working in humans. But here, these oils that I'm talking about here actually have scientific research behind them. Okay, so lime, I don't have time to go through all the research. A blend of cumin and lime. Okay, grapefruit. Now, one of the research studies showed with grapefruit oil, olfactory response, they can actually, through the nervous system, remember it's activating the limbic system, and the limbic system is then communicating. There's actually nerves that go to your adipose tissue and communicates with your adipose, both white and brown adipose tissue. There's a nervous system connecting into it, so your brain communicates with it. So the olfactory response from grapefruit oil will actually, this is in animals, will actually cause the white blood cells, white adipose fat tissue, to some of it convert over to brown adipose tissue, become metabolically active. And the grapefruit also helps reduce your appetite. Okay, so this is through the nervous response, through the limbic system, communicating through the nerves, telling the fat tissue to convert over to brown. Pretty amazing. Now, lemon, which has a constituent in it called D-limonene, which is one of the constituents in lemon oil, essential oil. D-limonene will inhibit pre-adipocytes from becoming adipocytes. So if you think of any cell in your body, it always has a precursor cell, and those cells, basically, like you start with stem cells, which are the most primordial type of cell. They basically haven't differentiated any type of cell type yet. And as they progress and get certain signals, those stem cells will divide and become a little bit more like a muscle cell, and a little bit more like a brain cell, or a little bit more like a fat cell. Depending on what signals that stem cell is receiving, you can coax that cell to differentiate into a very specific type of cell. But all cells start as a pluripotent stem cell that has the potency to become any one number of any different cell types. Okay, so adipocytes are no different. Fat cells, they start as a precursor cell, pre-adipocytes, and then they differentiate into adipocytes. So D-limonene actually inhibits this process of pre-adipocytes differentiating into adipocytes. So this is stopping the production of new fat cells, right? D-limonene also upregulates a factor called PPAR alpha. There's PPAR alpha, there's PPAR gamma, PPAR delta. These are basically signal transducers in your cells that have a number of different effects. One of the effects of PPAR alpha is it upregulates lipolysis, which is a catabolic product that breaks down fat. So PPAR alpha, one of the net effects of that being ramped up by D-limonene is it tells your cells to break down fat. And it also tells your cells to convert from white to brown type of white of fat tissue, white to brown. So another factor that can help convert white fat cells over to brown. Rosemary and sage, they have two constituents, carnosic acid and carnosol, okay, which can make your adipocytes actually shrink in size. Okay, this has been shown. Less fat accumulation in the liver. The liver is a place where fat gets stored, and that can be very unhealthy for your liver. So this also helps with getting the fat out of your liver, getting rid of fat out of your liver. and it will upregulate PPAR gamma, which has the same effect that I showed you earlier with the D-limonene. Lemongrass has a constituent called citral. Citral is actually a combination of two different constituents, okay, geranal and neral. And what are the effects of these? So one effect is they upregulate an enzyme called retinol dehydrogenase in your fat tissue. And what does this do? This actually then causes the fibroblasts to stop becoming adipocytes. All right, remember I said these cells progress from fibroblasts to pre-adipocytes to adipocytes. So that progression will be inhibited by the upregulation of retinol dehydrogenase, which is upregulated by the constituents in lemongrass, okay? And also citral will upregulate PPAR gamma and alpha. So again, white to brown, and all of that. So these oils have been shown in the literature to do these things in animal models. Okay, so these are oils that I would say would be good for you to use on a daily basis and blends thereof. Now, the other thing that's important, and I still have some time, is blood sugar regulation. I already alluded to this earlier with insulin spikes, right? Insulin is anabolic. It means it's telling your cells to store away energy, build molecules, save, we need stuff for a rainy day. Telling your body, store away stuff for a rainy day. And so when you eat and you have a high glycemic index food, blood sugar spikes quickly. Your pancreas releases insulin quickly. You get insulin spike, your cells suck up the sugar out of the blood. And then the insulin tells your cells to start taking those sugar molecules and building fat into your fat tissue. There's an opposing hormone that does the opposite of insulin, what's called glucagon. So glucagon is catabolic, break down molecules, don't store away, break down what you have, converting it to energy. How do you get more glucagon and less insulin? You eat foods with a lower glycemic index. What does that mean? Foods that aren't processed are basically going to give you a lower glycemic index. Things that have fat around them, fiber around them, nutrients still embedded in them. It's not just, somebody's extracted away everything else and all you're left with is the carbohydrate. That carbohydrate is going to be quickly converted into sugar in your body, like that, in minutes. And you're going to get a huge insulin spike. And that's going to cause most of the calories you just ate to be diverted away into fat. And so converting your diet over, you don't have to necessarily reduce the calories you're eating. You're just switching over the type. You're just making sure the carbohydrates you're eating are whole grains, right? That haven't been processed. You're still eating spaghetti. You're just eating einkorn spaghetti. Right? You're doing like that. You just switch over to these things that are lowering the insulin spikes throughout the day. Wolfberries are great. Wolfberries have a number of different factors in there, high in fiber, right? Lots of fiber, but they also have a component called lithium barbarum polysaccharide, LBP, which is a highly branched polysaccharide, which means it's sugar, but it's a branched sugar. It's a large structural molecule that's hard to break down. So it doesn't convert into sugar in your cells quickly. It's a very low glycemic index, but it's surrounded by fiber, and it's also surrounded by all these trace minerals. Okay, so eating wolfberries is a very low glycemic index food and a good way to get trace minerals into your body and fiber into your body, lower the number of insulin spikes. Fat and fiber will slow down the absorption and the conversion of carbohydrates into sugar. Okay, oils. Oils that you can use to help regulate your blood sugar levels and correspondingly insulin spike levels. List them out here. I have a class on this as well, on blood sugar, and I show you all the scientific research on these oils, how they work, and what they do with blood sugar levels. But here's the net of the summary, basically, of those oils: rosemary oil, cinnamon oil. Cinnamon is also an insulin sensitizer, meaning that if, as you go, you live your lifestyle where you have constant insulin spikes, eventually what happens is insulin receptors in your cells, because there's an insulin receptor that insulin binds to, communicates to the cell through the insulin receptor. The insulin receptor stops listening to insulin because it's like the boy who cried wolf. Or if there's a constant ringing in your ear, eventually you don't hear it anymore, because your body tunes it down. It said, okay, there's so much insulin all the time, I'm going to turn down my receptors. And also chronic inflammation will basically affect the receptors as well. So you have fat tissue in your body causes insulin resistance. What does that mean? Your receptors aren't listening to the insulin anymore. Inflammation causes that, but also constant barrages of insulin spikes will eventually make you insulin resistant, which means that your pancreas goes, oh, this blood sugar is not really coming down. I secreted insulin to tell the cells to absorb the sugar, but my little glucose sensor is still saying there's sugar in the blood. It's not being sucked up by the cells. The cells aren't listening. The insulin receptors aren't working properly. So what does the pancreas do? It produces more insulin. So I better make some more insulin. So now your pancreas is actually making more insulin because you're insulin resistant. And then what eventually happens is the beta islet cells, which are the cells in your pancreas that produce the insulin, they wear out, and now you stop producing insulin. Okay, and now you're type 1 diabetic because you don't produce insulin. Now you produce insulin shots. But what led to this? Insulin resistance. Now, cinnamon is an insulin sensitizer, meaning it can help with this effect, this negative effect of insulin resistance to the receptor, helping reactivate that process. So cinnamon is a good way to help with preventing insulin resistance. Cassia ocotea, a very specific blend that was looked at in literature as well for blood sugar levels. And this blend here is actually in the scientific research. It's oregano, cinnamon, fenugreek, cumin, and myrtle. That blend there. Clove, melissa, and then LBP. What is LBP? That's that polysaccharide I was telling you. Wolfberries. Scientific studies, clinical studies have shown people eating a diet of wolfberries. They put people that are diabetic in China. Wolfberries are actually a medicinal product in China. Doctors prescribe wolfberry powder to patients. It's actually in their pharmacopoeia. So every country has a pharmacopoeia, which is what doctors are allowed to prescribe. It's a book. So you can prescribe this for that. You can prescribe. So every country has a pharmacopoeia. The United States has virtually no natural products in its pharmacopoeia. Essential oils, wolfberry, none of that. You go to countries like Germany and France, they do have essential oils in their pharmacopoeia. You go to China, they got all kinds of herbs in their pharmacopoeia. They have wolfberries, essential oils, any natural thing you could think of that a plant makes, a fungi makes, some kind of living organism makes. They extract it and they put it in their pharmacopoeia. And so wolfberries are actually prescribed in China. And because of that, there's a lot of scientific research coming out of China and published in the literature in peer-reviewed journals, as well as clinical studies that are published on people using wolfberries for all types of things. One of them is for people that have diabetes, and you can read up all the literature. Just type in wolfberries, goji berries, Lycium barbarum polysaccharide into PubMed and put the word diabetes next to it, and you'll find all kinds of research. And the way it's working is it's helping with the blood sugar levels, helping maintain that properly. So that's about it. I only got 5 minutes left. I know the next speaker's coming on, but if you go to starfishsense.com, I have all my classes on there, and it's got all the videos and the slides. A lot of these classes have multiple modules, and you had the video of me teaching through the class like I just did now. to try to explain these things as well as all the slides. You can use this material to teach your own class. I only ask that you don't leave it up on a website somewhere or don't transfer the files to anybody. It was hard for people to download things. That's why I made memory sticks, so I could just mail it to you, and then you don't have to worry about sitting on your internet letting these video files download. So it makes it easier for you to pop them on your computer and have them there. I also have all my recipes on there. I have different 7-day rotation sets that allow you to make different blends for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so there's a metabolic one, there's a woman's hormone one, etc. That allows you to, alternate the blend each day to maximize the synergy that's going on there. I also have my frequently asked questions database on there too. So what I'll do, and this is what it looks like on the website. I'll actually put the link in the chat box here. So that's it. So if does anybody have any questions, I can answer in like 1 minute, maybe one question.
I hope so. One person said the suggestion of with all Young Living's new products, hopefully convention products, hopefully you can do an updated class on that soon or add that into there. And the main question is, when it comes to hormone balance, what can women do if you had a total hysterectomy and later on estrogen receptive for breast cancer?
Okay, can you repeat the last one? If you had a major hysterectomy?
Yeah, you had a total hysterectomy and are estrogen receptive and later on have estrogen receptive breast cancer.
Okay, so yeah. So natural progesterone is something that is good in that situation. You want to get a form that's from yams, basically converted from yams. You don't want synthetic types of hormones, but progesterone is a good. My wife uses that and has got a lot of good health testimonies from that. We've gotten a lot, so I would suggest progesterone. Natural. Young Living has a product for that.
Yeah.
Justin's Plus. But if you need a higher level than that, if that's not working, you need a higher concentration, which my wife does, then she uses a different version. But for most people, that Progestin Plus will work.
Okay, the tea bags. Okay, thank you so very much. I know everyone has benefited this greatly, and this will be shared. I'm sure it'll be shared out a lot. I know we have more for you, coming from you in the future, because you're so willing to help educate Young Living globally, and we just really appreciate your time and all your expertise. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.